M2 money supply continues to lead Bitcoin and altcoin prices incredibly accurately, and this tells us that at any moment we can expect to see crypto prices pushing back towards the upside. On top of that, a number of major charts are on the verge of breakouts, but most importantly, this Bitcoin versus gold chart is looking to push higher. When it does, it signals to the wider market that that dip we've just had for altcoins is probably one of the last ones that we're going to see. Things are about to get incredibly exciting. But what happens in September? Because according to this chart, the M2 money supply falls off the face of a cliff. Does that mean that the bull market finishes, or will it be just a brief pause in the crypto bull market? In this video, we're going to answer all those questions so that we know exactly where the markets are heading over the next few days and what we should be doing about it. Do me a favor, hit the like button, and let's get into today's video. Now guys, before we dive in and take a look at those various different charts, most importantly that Bitcoin versus gold chart which signals something crazy is going on behind the scenes, just a quick disclaimer. Nothing I say in this video is financial advice. Everything I say is for entertainment purposes only. If you wish to invest money in crypto, you should understand that it is risky and you can lose money. So don't use money that you can't afford to lose, and always do your own research before investing in anything. Now that we got that out of the way, let's crack on with it. Now, before we jump across and take a look at all of those key charts and understand what's going on with Bitcoin and the altcoins that you're personally holding, let's just quickly have a look at this chart because it's incredibly important. Now, if you've been subscribed to my channel over the past few months or years, you would have heard me talk about M2 money supply. And M2 money supply is an incredibly accurate indicator as to where Bitcoin and the altcoins are heading. I made this tweet on the 10th of April telling you that every time the M2 money supply went from a pivot low and pushed higher, we would likely see the market moving up with it. This was the 10th of April, Bitcoin was $78,600, and that was us around there. And so you can see just how accurately this blue line is that's guiding the Bitcoin and altcoin prices. Now, for those of you who are unaware, M2 money supply is effectively the money that's available in the world. Okay, maybe that's in form of cash, maybe that's in the form of money in banks and other things like that. It's the sign of kind of liquidity or available money within the market. And with approximately an 83-day delay, it lines up incredibly accurately with crypto. Now, all you need to do if you want to use this, go to tradingview.com, go for indicators and just write M2 money, and then just select the top one here. Now, it's going to bring up this line here. We're on a daily chart, so we just want to write something like 83, 82 days. It's obviously not accurate to a 24-hour period. If you try and do that, you'll end up finding yourself in a bit of trouble. But as you can see, within a few days, pretty much every single kind of major pivot is matched on this chart. Okay, so this is an incredibly powerful indicator because it's going to tell you roughly when to sort of be taking profits, when to be sort of expecting to see some sideways action like we've been seeing through here, when to expect to see some leg ups like the one that's coming incredibly soon. You get the picture. And if you go back through time, you can see that this is pretty accurate. Okay, now this runs approximately 83 days ahead, which is great because it tells us what we can expect roughly to happen in the future for Bitcoin and the altcoins. And before we look into this part, let's just look at where we are on the very short term and what we can expect to happen in the next few days to the next kind of week or so ahead. Now, if you want further details on what M2 money is and how it all kind of works, either go and ask ChatGPT or go and look up Raoul Pal, okay? He's the guy who basically identified the relationship between Bitcoin and the M2 money supply. Okay, I'm not going to claim it like other people seem to have done. He's the one who's kind of behind all of this, and he's been pretty accurate in identifying what's likely to happen in crypto. Now, as you can see, the M2 money supply throughout this kind of period has just been kind of going sideways, which is why we got Bitcoin just ranging around. But what you can see is pretty much from this weekend is that we do get this little tiny dip, and then we start to run up pretty strongly into August, and then into September we have this kind of crazy blow off top around the 22nd of September. So in the short space of time, it does look pretty bullish for Bitcoin. And as we know, once Bitcoin starts to go up, the wider altcoin market goes with it. But the altcoins are definitely going to be performing very, very strongly during this phase for the charts that I'll share with you later on. Now, what are we to make of this up here? I think right now it's a little bit early to call it, okay, but we need to be paying close attention. Ultimately, having studied what happened at the top of the last bull market, what we saw was the M2 money supply continuing to kind of run down like this. In the next kind of month or so, we should be able to start seeing what's going to happen from here. I actually think that we're going to get continuation here. So this might just be a brief kind of moment of cool off during the bull market, and it might be just might be a time to maybe consider locking in a profit or two up here. But obviously, as the bull market gets running and gets more and more greedy and more carried away, we can sometimes expect to see Bitcoin and altcoins in general decoupling from the M2. Okay, we saw this happening here. We can see M2 kind of cooled off, but then Bitcoin just carried on aggressively. Eventually, it did have a bit of a sideways action, but it's worth just kind of paying attention to what's happening. Now, why is the M2 falling off? Simply because of this. It's all because of the dollar. Now, just so you understand what really M2 is, you heard yesterday that the FOMC meeting resulted in no rate cuts, no quantitative easing or anything like that, which means that the US right now, the world's largest economy, is not stimulating its economy. It's not printing money. It's not adding money to its supply, or at least not publicly. However, lots of other countries around the world, like China, like countries in Europe, like the UK, like others, like India, Canada, are all printing money quite aggressively. They're already inflating and they're starting to add more and more money into their currency. And this money is all finding its way into crypto. Now, the weaker the dollar is, the more everyone else out there can go and print money because all of their currencies are pegged to the dollar. So if the dollar's weaker, it means you can make your currency weaker as well, and it's all okay for you. Okay, so this is what other countries is doing. As the dollar's been weakening, every other country has been printing money. And let me show you this. By turning this M2 money shift to 0, you can see that as the M2 was going up, the dollar was going down. Very easy to see, right? Now what you can see is the dollar starts to rise, and this is causing the M2 to fall. So what we really need to be paying close attention to is what the dollar does over the kind of next few weeks. As you can see, it seems to be running into some resistance. If the dollar just rolls over and starts to do something like this, which is potentially possible, then what you can see is a continuation in the M2 happening. Now, there are other factors at play. If we start to see a cut in interest rates or even the Fed pivoting towards a potential cut, then this is going to have a big impact on the M2 in general, not just on how much the dollar's worth, etc. But because the rates are not falling, this is very closely aligned to what's been going on with the dollar. So do I think this means that this is the end of the bull market? Well, absolutely not, because around then we still wouldn't have seen rate cuts. While rate cuts are definitely not integral to the price of Bitcoin and crypto in general going up, because as you know, we've had high rates for a very long time, and Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything has just been going up and up and up anyway. Ultimately, that would be like gas on the fire. Okay, so whenever the rate cuts come in, which is probably going to be sometime around September, it will result in a massive flood of capital entering into these markets, because ultimately everyone will be forced to go risk on. And when things go risk on, we start to see altcoins like Ethereum and others outperforming Bitcoin. And as you can see, Ethereum has been outperforming Bitcoin since back in May, has been outperforming pretty aggressively, in fact, and is likely going to continue to the upside. And let me show you proof of this with a very interesting chart that maybe you've not seen before. And it's this. It's Bitcoin versus gold. Now, this is a really important chart because this tells us something very useful about markets. Crypto represents a risk end of markets, global markets, okay? Not just crypto, but we're talking bonds, housing, real estate, and whatever. I appreciate this might be a little bit boring, okay, but stick with me, because if you can understand this, you're going to know that the market is going to increase eventually, and then that allows you to be like a hawk. Every time you see any little dip, you're straight in there, you're happy, you're not selling or panicking at all, and that's why, you know, you can get in yesterday when the market was red, and then today you wake up and everything is green again, literally with some coins doing 26% gains in a single day. Okay, so buying the dip right now, any dip that you get, in my opinion, is an absolute opportunity, especially as we move into this final phase of growth. Now, Bitcoin and gold represent different things. The least risky end of the market is things like the US dollar, it's things like bonds, treasuries, also things like gold, like a safe haven, right? So when everything goes wrong, when the market goes tits up, everyone starts to go towards things like gold and whatever else, right? So low risk timing. Crypto tends to go into bear markets during those low risk times. Once you start to go towards risk off, then crypto tends to do well. And once it goes really risk off, then you start to see altcoins doing really well. And then when it goes crazy, you start to see small cap altcoins and NFTs and whatever else blowing up. Now, gold being a low risk asset and Bitcoin being a higher risk asset, because obviously while it's the digital gold, it's still much smaller and it's incredibly volatile, as you know. This tells us our bull market indicator. It tells us how risk on institutional investors are, not just how risk on we are, because retail investors like us tend to follow whether or not the institutions are risk on or risk off, and they tend to move faster and quicker than we do because a lot of people are too emotional. Now, as you can see, this is following a trend towards the upside. So as Bitcoin is going up, gold is effectively not really going anywhere. You can see that gold basically goes up as interest rates and everything starts to rise, and then as interest rates are really high, we then see sort of Donald Trump coming in and people anticipating that we're going to see tariffs coming in. Donald Trump gets into power. Around here, we can see a massive leg up in gold as everyone is really uncertain and worried. You can then see that gold starts to put in a top signal. It is not making it right now past $3,400 an ounce, right? This is telling us that this is likely to start cooling off because remember, this represents a low risk time in the market. Okay, we want to move towards a high risk time in the market, which is crypto. Okay, so Bitcoin is here, gold is here. Right now, you're starting to see gold at the top of its game starting to weaken and potentially start to sell off. And at that time, what you're going to start to see is money moving in this direction down the risk curve. Okay, we already started to see it happen a bit with Bitcoin rallying up. But Bitcoin has been rallying up with people preempting the next moves. A lot of crypto has been pumping up because of people preempting what happens next. Once the actual liquidity flows start to go crazy like this, things are going to get very exciting. And back to this Bitcoin gold chart, as you can see, we had big pumps on this. This was like the mini bull market back in March of 2024. This was like the mini bull market at the end of last year, okay? Before kind of Trump got into office literally here and then started calling about tariffs and everything kind of went down. Then you can see we've been coiling up in here. And now, right now, we're threatening to break out of this area. As you can see, this has happened before. And every single time it pretty much breaks out of here, it flips risk on. Around this time, there's a very high chance that we see a continued fall in the Bitcoin dominance. Okay, Bitcoin dominance has fallen aggressively. It had a little couple of weeks where it's been spiking back up in here, making people all uncertain again. But as you can see, jumping into a 4-hour chart, this is just finding resistance once more. Okay, and as you can see, we can expect this to potentially fall like this. Whenever this starts to fall out of here, we're back into the greed, we're back into the crazy pumps and excitement again, which is why we want to be very aggressive whenever we get a shot. I know it's really difficult because over the past few kind of months and whatever, every time we've seen dips, they've lasted a little bit longer than was anticipated. But that Bitcoin versus gold chart tells you that the institutions and the smart money are moving risk on, and we need to get aggressive with it and be more risk on as well, in my opinion. So what else is worth looking at? Well, Bitcoin dominance starts to look to fall, and that means what? Well, it means that the altcoins can start to look more and more bullish. And this is Total 3, which is the altcoin market minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. As you can see, we had previous resistance here. That resistance got broken. It's now been flipped into support. And as you can see, if you jump across to a daily chart, that's looking pretty strong. Now, can we expect this to break higher? I do believe that at some point, within probably the next 7 or so days, you're going to see Bitcoin pushing back up towards all-time highs. You're going to see Ethereum breaking out, and that's going to give a risk-on signal to the wider altcoin market. Ethereum sits there right now, just chilling under here. As far as I'm concerned, this is literally the last dying moments before we're not going to be able to buy into cheap altcoins anymore. And in these last dying moments, you know, the opportunities are going to be rarer and rarer, because as soon as this does this, and it's going to do it very, very soon, because there's huge amounts of buying pressure building up here. ETF inflows are crazy for Ethereum. There's lots of short positions up here that will get liquidated, will be gas on the fire. Once this starts to rocket, heads towards all-time highs, then things will start to get very exciting. And just look, the Ethereum dominance continues to rally and rally without any signs of pausing right now. Now, where would I personally be looking to invest? What would I be doing right now? Personally, I'm not really moving around a huge amount of money. Okay, what I told you the other day in a video was that I've been taking a few profits on Ethereum, mainly because I've been buying in down here. And while yes, it's been up, and while yes, it will go higher, I don't really expect Ethereum to go beyond, you know, the sort of $7,500 or $7,000 level, which is effectively a 2x, which is still good. But I think that if Ethereum breaks this, you're going to see a lot bigger, more aggressive pumps across altcoins. Any altcoins really that you can think of recently that have been showing like good intent to go higher. Maybe you've seen a nice pullback recently. This is just Beam as an example. Then I've been looking to try and get into these. Others you can see, we had Aether, had a very strong run up from April, then had a nice pullback, started to run up again strongly. Whenever you see these coins showing strength when the market is greedy and whatever, and then you see a healthy pullback, it's a no-brainer, okay? Because these coins are telling you, like, look, when the markets are hot, we'll run nicely. We then see some pullbacks, then we're able to get into them. Now, guys, right now, I think things look pretty damn good. I will be looking into the next few videos and maybe specializing videos towards gaming or real-world assets, maybe some DeFi, and look into some real game-changing coins and things. Also, looking into some new launches and projects that could be launching with some pretty exciting times ahead. Okay, so do me a favor, if you haven't already and you want to understand what's going on in crypto, want to understand what really drives these markets, because there is definitely logic behind all of this, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Okay, if you've been struggling through this bull market so far, you're not really sure which way to turn, which altcoins to be buying, and what's driving crypto, subscribe. Okay, we together will make our way through this bull market and try and lock in as much money as possible. Now, if you want to be buying into different crypto coins and you are wondering why you can't find this coin or that coin that you've heard of on YouTube or Twitter, on Coinbase or Binance, it's because they tend to be smaller cap coins. It's incredibly difficult for a project to get listed on Binance and Coinbase, and they only tend to do it after they've already gone up a lot. So if you want to be able to access small and mid cap coins where you can see some of the best upside potential, then make sure you sign up to any of the 3 exchanges listed down below. I've got Bitunix, I've got WEEX, and I've got BloFin, and I use all of these 3 exchanges almost every single day. I use them for trading, and I use them to buy all the different cryptos I talk about. By having all 3, I can access any coin I want at any given time. Now, none of these exchanges require KYC, and they also have some of the lowest fees across the entire crypto market. So wherever you are in the world, you're going to be able to access these different exchanges and, of course, access any coin pretty much with market cap starting at kind of 5 mil or more. So I recommend signing up for those links down below. Also, they all come with significant bonuses if you use these links specifically. So make sure you click on those links down below. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Do me a favor, hit the like button. Let me know down below what you want to see in future videos, exit plans, certain types of cryptos, etc. And I'll do my best to try and bring you that content. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye.